Why is it that two people can start from the same place, hear the same message, even pray the same prayers, yet one rises into purpose while the other remains stuck in the same cycle year after year? Why do some people move forward with speed, clarity, and impact, while others keep waiting, delaying, and hoping that someday things will change? I want you to sit with that question for a moment, because your answer to it may determine the direction of your life. The truth is, it's not luck, it's not background, and it's not even opportunity. There is something deeper, something more consistent, something that quietly shapes your future every single day. Now listen carefully. Time is not waiting for you. Every second that passes is a piece of your destiny being spent. You don't store time. You don't pause time. You don't negotiate with time. Life is moving, whether you are intentional or not. And while you're thinking about starting, while you're waiting for the perfect moment, someone else is turning an ordinary moment into a life-changing opportunity. Purpose is not chasing you. You must rise and walk into it. There is a demand on your life, and that demand cannot be fulfilled by wishing, by talking, or by planning alone. Now understand this clearly. Your life today is a reflection of what you have repeatedly done, not what you occasionally say. Habits are not small things. Habits are invisible forces shaping visible results. You don't become successful overnight. You become it daily. You don't fail in one day. You drift into it through repeated patterns. That is why the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life. Your heart is not just your emotions. It is the control center of your habits, your decisions, your consistency. Whatever you allow to dominate your heart will eventually manifest in your life. If your habits are weak, your results will be weak. If your habits are strong, your future becomes unstoppable. Furthermore, there is a clear separation in life that most people ignore. It's the difference between the 99% and the 1%. And no, that difference is not intelligence, it's not talent, and it's not even resources. The difference is discipline in daily habits. The 1% do consistently what the 99% only talk about occasionally. The 1% act when they don't feel like it. The 1% stay focused when distractions are everywhere. The 1% build habits that align with purpose, while the 99% build habits that satisfy comfort. And over time, that gap becomes massive. One group rises, the other remains stuck, and it all started with small daily decisions. So today, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to challenge you. I'm here to awaken something inside you that refuses to settle for average. Over the next few moments, I will walk you through 5 habits, 5 powerful, practical, and biblical habits that have the ability to completely transform your life. These are not theories. These are principles that work. These are habits that, if applied consistently, will put you ahead of 99% of people around you. But hear this clearly. It will not happen by listening alone. It will only happen by doing. Before we go further, I need you to make a decision. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Decide that your life will not remain the same. Decide that you will no longer be controlled by excuses, fear, or inconsistency. Decide that you will take responsibility for your habits, because your habits are shaping your destiny, whether you like it or not. And if you can change your habits, you can change your life. Now, are you ready to step into the first habit that separates those who talk from those who win? However, let me take you straight into the first habit that begins to separate those who merely wish for a better life from those who actually create one discipline over feelings. Most people live their lives reacting to how they feel. If they feel motivated, they act. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel discouraged, they quit. And without realizing it, they have handed control of their destiny over to their emotions. But feelings are unstable. They rise and fall. They change without notice. If you build your life on feelings, you will build a life that is inconsistent, unpredictable, and ultimately unproductive. Discipline, on the other hand, does not ask for permission from your emotions. Discipline wakes up when it doesn't feel like waking up. Discipline continues when everything inside you is saying stop. Discipline shows up on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. And this is where the real transformation begins, when you stop negotiating with your feelings and start committing to your decisions. Because the truth is, success is not built on what you feel like doing. It is built on what you choose to do, regardless of how you feel. Consider a simple, real-life scenario. There are two people with the same goal. One wakes up early only when they feel inspired. The other wakes up early every single day because they have decided it matters. One works only when the mood is right. The other works whether the mood is right or not. Fast forward a few months, and the difference becomes undeniable. One is still starting, still planning, still hoping. The other is progressing, growing, and producing results. The gap didn't come from talent, it came from discipline. The Bible makes this very clear in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 to 27. It speaks about running in a race in such a way as to win. And it goes further to say that every man who strives for mastery exercises self-control in all things. This is powerful because it shows that winning is intentional. It requires control. It requires structure. It requires the ability to tell yourself no when comfort is calling and yes when purpose is demanding. Discipline is not punishment, it is preparation. It is training your life to produce results. Moreover, many people pray for success, but they resist discipline. They ask God for progress, but they avoid structure. Yet discipline is often the very answer to the prayer they keep praying. God will not come down and force you to be consistent. He has already given you the ability to choose, to act, and to commit. Your responsibility is to align your actions with your purpose daily. And the moment you do that, everything begins to shift. Here is where it becomes personal. There are things you already know you should be doing. You don't need more information, you need more execution. You know the habits you've been avoiding. You know the distractions that have been slowing you down. You know the areas where you've been inconsistent. Discipline begins the moment you stop making excuses for those things and start confronting them with action. It is not complicated, but it is uncomfortable. And that is exactly why most people avoid it. But hear this clearly. Your future is hiding inside the things you keep postponing. Every time you choose comfort over discipline, you delay your own progress. Every time you follow your feelings instead of your commitment, you weaken your consistency. But every time you act despite how you feel, you build strength. You build momentum. You build a life that moves forward. So the question is no longer, do you feel like it? The real question is, are you committed enough to do it anyway? Because the moment your commitment becomes stronger than your feelings, your life will begin to change in ways you cannot imagine. Now, are you ready to step into the second habit that gives your life direction and clarity? Moreover, let's move into the second habit, and this is where many people quietly lose the battle without even realizing it: clarity of purpose. You see, discipline without direction can make you busy, but it will not necessarily make you effective. You can wake up early, work hard, stay consistent, and still end up frustrated if you are not clear about where you are going. Activity is not the same as progress. Movement is not the same as direction. And one of the greatest traps in life is being active but not aligned. Now think about it. Have you ever seen someone who is always doing something, always occupied, always moving, yet their life never seems to move forward? That is the result of a lack of clarity. When purpose is not defined, energy is scattered. When vision is not clear, effort is wasted. And when direction is missing, even your discipline can lead you in the wrong direction. That is why clarity is not optional, it is essential. The Bible speaks directly to this in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2 to 3, where it says to write the vision and make it plain so that he who reads it may run with it. Notice that it doesn't just say have a vision. It says write it, make it plain. That means your purpose must be clear enough that it directs your actions. It must be specific enough that it influences your decisions. It must be strong enough that it keeps you moving even when things get difficult. Because when vision is clear, movement becomes intentional. Furthermore, clarity changes how you live daily. When you know what you are called to do, you stop saying yes to everything. You become selective. You begin to protect your time, your energy, and your focus. Distractions lose their power because they no longer align with your direction. You don't chase every opportunity. You pursue the right ones. And this is where many people struggle, because saying yes to purpose often requires saying no to comfort, to distractions, and sometimes even to people. Let me make this practical. Imagine two individuals again. One has no clear vision. They wake up and react to whatever comes. Social media pulls them one way. Friends pull them another way. Circumstances push them in different directions. At the end of the day, they are tired but unfulfilled. The other person has a written vision. They know what they are building. They know what matters. Their day is structured around their purpose. They are not just busy, they are productive. Now give both of them 1 year and the difference will be undeniable. In addition, clarity gives you something powerful. It gives you endurance. When you know why you are doing something, you can endure almost any difficulty. When your purpose is clear, challenges don't stop you, they strengthen you. Obstacles don't confuse you, they refine you. Because you are no longer moving randomly, you are moving intentionally. And intentional living produces consistent results. However, many people avoid clarity because it requires responsibility. It is easier to drift than to decide. It is easier to be vague than to be specific. Because the moment you define your purpose, you remove your excuses. The moment you become clear, you become accountable. You can no longer blame circumstances because now you know what you are supposed to be doing. And for many people, that level of responsibility feels uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. Let's go deeper. Clarity is not just about goals. It is about alignment with God's purpose for your life. You were not created randomly. You were designed intentionally. There is something specific you are meant to contribute, something unique you are meant to build, something impactful you are meant to become. And until you begin to seek that purpose, you will continue to feel a sense of incompleteness no matter how busy you are. Because activity can never replace alignment. So what does this mean for you right now? It means you must take time to define your vision, not in your head on paper. What are you building? Who are you becoming? What impact are you called to make? What kind of life aligns with God's purpose for you? These are not small questions, but they are necessary questions, because once you answer them, your life begins to organize itself around those answers. And here is the truth. Clarity simplifies your life. It removes confusion. It reduces stress. It eliminates unnecessary decisions. When your purpose is clear, your priorities become obvious. You stop overthinking and you start executing. You stop wandering and you start building. You stop reacting and you start leading your own life with intention. Understand this. Clarity is not something you discover once and forget. It is something you refine continuously. As you grow, your understanding deepens. As you move forward, your vision becomes sharper. But it all begins with a decision to stop drifting and start defining. Because the moment you gain clarity, you gain power. The power to direct your life instead of being controlled by it. Now, are you ready to step into the third habit that will completely transform how you use your time and accelerate your results? Furthermore, we come now to a habit that most people underestimate until they look back on their lives with regret. The value of time. If there is one resource every human being is given equally, it is time. Rich or poor, educated or uneducated, young or old, everyone receives the same 24 hours. Yet the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not in how much time they have, but in how they use it. Time is the silent currency of life, and every moment you spend is a transaction you can never reverse. Now consider this deeply. Money lost can be recovered. Opportunities missed can sometimes return, but time once spent is gone forever. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot pause it. You cannot rewind it. Time is the only resource that when wasted is gone permanently. And yet, ironically, it is the most wasted resource in human life. People spend it carelessly on distractions, delay, procrastination, and things that carry no eternal or meaningful value. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 to 16, the Bible says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." That phrase, redeeming the time, is powerful. It means to recover, to maximize, to use wisely, to treat time as something precious and irreplaceable. God is not just concerned with what you do, but also with how you use the time He has given you. Because your assignment on earth is tied to your time. Now let's bring this into real life. Imagine two people with the same potential, same opportunities, same starting point. One person spends hours scrolling, reacting, consuming content that adds no value. The other person is intentional. They read, they learn, they build, they execute. At first, the difference looks small. A few hours here, a few hours there. But over weeks, months, and years, that small difference becomes a massive gap. One person becomes skilled, focused, and impactful. The other becomes frustrated, wondering where all the time went. The truth is, time does not disappear. It is invested or wasted. There is no neutral use of time. Every minute is either building your future or weakening it. Even rest must be intentional, because unmanaged rest becomes laziness, but strategic rest becomes renewal. That is why wisdom is required in how you manage your day, your focus, your attention, and your energy. Because time is not just about hours, it is about what you produce within those hours. Moreover, distractions are one of the greatest enemies of time. We live in a generation where attention is constantly under attack. Notifications, entertainment, social media, unnecessary conversations, everything is competing for your focus. And the danger is not that these things exist, but that they slowly steal your time without you realizing it. You think you are just taking a break, but days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, and suddenly you look back and realize you have not moved forward. But hear this clearly. Successful people are not necessarily those with more time, but those who are more aware of time. They treat time with respect. They understand that every day is an opportunity to move closer to purpose. They don't wait for motivation. They structure their time. They don't rely on feelings. They rely on systems. And because of that, their results compound over time. The Bible also gives us wisdom in Psalm chapter 90, verse 12, which says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." That means awareness of time leads to wisdom. When you become conscious that your days are limited, you begin to live differently. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter. You stop prioritizing what aligns with your purpose. You become intentional about your actions because you understand that your life is measured not just in years, but in moments used wisely. Now let's go deeper. Time is directly connected to destiny. What you do with your time determines what your life becomes. There are things God has placed inside you that require time to develop. But if your time is constantly scattered, your growth becomes delayed. Many people are not failing because they lack ability. They are failing because they lack time discipline. They are always busy but never productive. Always active but never effective. So the question becomes, how are you using your time right now? Are your daily habits aligned with your purpose, or are they draining your future? Because every day you live without intentionality is a day you cannot recover. And success is not built in one big moment. It is built in daily decisions about how you use your time. In addition, when you begin to value time properly, everything about your life changes. You become more focused in your conversations. You become more intentional with your decisions. You become more selective with your relationships. You stop tolerating things that waste your time, and you start building things that multiply your time, because you realize that time is not just life passing, it is life being built. Understand this. God gives purpose, but He entrusts time. And how you manage your time is how you respond to that trust. If you misuse time, you delay purpose. If you maximize time, you accelerate destiny. And the difference between the 99% and the 1% is often not ability, it is time discipline. So as we move forward, I want you to reflect deeply on this. Are you respecting your time or are you wasting it? Because your future is quietly being built in how you answer that question every single day. Now, are you ready to step into the fourth habit that will take your personal growth to another level? Additionally, we move into a habit that separates stagnant lives from continuously evolving ones, consistent growth. One of the most dangerous illusions in life is the belief that you can remain the same and still move forward. Life does not reward stagnation. Life responds to growth. If you are not growing, you are slowly declining, even if externally things appear stable. Because in a world that is constantly evolving, standing still is the same as moving backward. Now consider this carefully. Everything around you is either growing or decaying. Your skills, your mindset, your understanding, your emotional strength, none of these remain neutral. They are either improving or deteriorating. And the difference is what you intentionally feed them daily. That is why growth cannot be accidental. It must be deliberate, structured, and consistent. The Bible makes this principle very clear in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 18, which says, "But grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." Notice the instruction. It does not suggest growth, it commands it. Growth is not optional in the life of purpose, it is a requirement. You are expected to grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and in wisdom, because the level of your assignment will always demand the level of your growth. Now let's bring this into real life. Imagine two individuals who started at the same level years ago. One decides to grow intentionally. They read, they learn, they listen, they expose themselves to new knowledge. They improve their thinking. The other remains comfortable. They rely on what they already know. They repeat the same patterns, the same mindset, the same approach to life. At first, there is no visible difference. But over time, one begins to expand in influence, opportunity, and capacity, while the other remains confined to the same level of results. The difference was not talent, it was growth. Moreover, growth requires discomfort. You cannot grow while remaining comfortable. Every level of growth demands that you stretch beyond what feels familiar. That is why many people avoid growth. They prefer comfort over expansion. But comfort is the enemy of progress. If you stay only where you feel comfortable, you will never become who you are capable of becoming. Growth always pulls you beyond familiarity into possibility. In addition, growth is not automatic with age. You can grow older without growing wiser. You can gain years without gaining depth. That is why intentional development is critical. You must choose what you expose your mind to. You must choose what you feed your spirit. You must choose who you learn from, because everything you consume is shaping who you are becoming. The Bible also reinforces this principle in Proverbs chapter 1 verse 5, which says, "A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels." That means wisdom is not static, it increases through learning. The wise are not those who know everything, but those who are committed to learning continuously. Growth is a posture of humility. It is the recognition that there is always more to become. Now think about your daily life. Are you intentionally growing, or are you simply repeating routines? Are you exposing yourself to ideas that challenge you, or are you consuming only what is familiar? Because your environment, your inputs, and your habits are either expanding your capacity or limiting it. And over time, those small daily inputs determine your future output. Furthermore, consistent growth builds confidence. Not the shallow confidence of appearance, but the deep confidence of competence. When you know you are growing, you carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You think differently. Because you are no longer relying on yesterday's understanding, you are constantly upgrading your mind. And that creates momentum in every area of your life. But hear this clearly. Growth is not always visible immediately. It is often quiet. It happens in private. It happens in discipline. It happens in repetition. It happens in moments when nobody is watching. And that is why many people underestimate it. They expect instant transformation, but growth is a process. It compounds over time. Small improvements, repeated consistently, eventually produce extraordinary results. Now bring this back to purpose. Your assignment in life is too large to be handled by your current level of thinking. That means if you stay the same, you will eventually hit a ceiling. But if you commit to growth, you expand your capacity to carry more responsibility, more influence, and more impact. Growth is what prepares you for what you are praying for. So the real question is not whether you want success. The question is whether you are willing to grow into the person who can sustain it. Because success without growth cannot be maintained. It eventually collapses under the weight of unpreparedness. But when you grow consistently, you become stable, grounded, and capable of handling increase. As we move deeper into this message, you need to evaluate your current habits. Are they producing growth or stagnation? Are they expanding your thinking or limiting it? Because consistent growth is not about occasional effort, it is about daily commitment. Now, are you ready to step into the fifth habit that activates faith and action together to produce real transformation? Moreover, we arrive at a habit that brings everything together and turns knowledge into results. Faith combined with action. Many people stop at inspiration. They hear powerful messages. They feel motivated. They even believe something is possible for their lives, but nothing changes. Why? Because belief without movement is incomplete. Faith was never designed to be passive. Faith is active. Faith moves. Faith responds. Faith builds. Now understand this deeply. There is a difference between believing and acting on what you believe. You can believe your life can change and still remain the same. You can believe in your purpose and still ignore it. You can believe in success and still live in stagnation. But the moment belief is joined with action, transformation begins. Because faith without action is simply potential without expression. The Bible makes this principle unmistakably clear in James chapter 2 verse 17, which says, faith, if it has not works, is dead being alone. That means faith that does not produce action is incomplete. It is inactive. It is dormant. Real faith is proven by what you do, not just what you say you believe. Heaven responds to action-backed faith, not silent intention. Now let's bring this into real life. Imagine two people who both believe they are meant for greatness. One spends time dreaming, speaking, and hoping, but never takes consistent steps. The other believes the same thing, but immediately begins to act, learning new skills, applying for opportunities, building habits, making adjustments, and taking risks. After a while, the difference becomes undeniable. One remains in imagination, the other steps into manifestation. The difference was not belief, it was action. Furthermore, action is what activates opportunity. Many people are waiting for the perfect moment, but perfection never arrives. Opportunity does not announce itself with ideal conditions. It shows up in motion. When you begin to act, doors begin to open. When you start moving, clarity begins to appear. When you take steps, direction becomes clearer. But when you stay still, everything remains uncertain. In addition, fear is often the biggest barrier between faith and action. People know what they should do, but they are afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of uncertainty. Yet fear loses its power the moment you move. Fear thrives in hesitation, but it dies in action. Every step you take weakens fear's grip on your life. And every moment you delay strengthens it. The Bible gives us a powerful example in Hebrews chapter 11 verse 8, where it says, by faith Abraham, when he was called, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing where he was going. Notice that faith did not wait for full understanding. Faith moved in obedience. Abraham did not have every detail, but he had direction. And that was enough for action. Because sometimes clarity comes after movement, not before it. Now reflect on this personally. How many things have you delayed simply because you were waiting to feel ready? How many ideas have you postponed because you wanted certainty first? But readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. Action creates readiness. Action builds confidence. Action produces experience. You do not wait to become ready. You act your way into readiness. Moreover, consistent action is what separates dreamers from builders. Dreamers think, imagine, and hope. Builders think, then execute. They don't wait for motivation, they create momentum. And momentum is powerful because once you begin moving consistently, progress becomes easier. The hardest part is starting, but once movement begins, resistance reduces. Let's go deeper. Faith without action creates frustration because you start believing in possibilities, but nothing in your reality reflects them. That gap creates internal tension. But when faith is paired with action, alignment happens. Your belief system and your behavior begin to match. And that alignment produces results that others call luck, but you know is intentional. Additionally, action builds testimony. No one has a testimony without movement. You cannot testify about what you never attempted. You cannot speak about results you never pursued. Your story is written in your steps, not your thoughts. And every step of obedience becomes part of your transformation. So the question is no longer, do you believe? The real question is, what are you doing about what you believe? Because your actions are the loudest expression of your faith. And the direction of your life will always follow the consistency of your actions. Now, as we prepare to bring everything together, you need to understand that these habits are not separate ideas. They are a system. Discipline, clarity, time, growth, and faith with action all work together to build a life of purpose and impact. Furthermore, we arrive at a truth that separates spectators from builders and believers from achievers. Faith without action is powerless. Many people carry great dreams, strong visions, and deep spiritual convictions, yet their lives remain unchanged because what they believe in their heart never translates into what they do with their hands. And until faith becomes action, it remains incomplete. It remains inactive. It remains unrealized potential. Now consider this carefully in real life. There are dreamers who constantly talk about what they will become. They speak about the future. They imagine success. They feel inspired in moments of motivation. But when it is time to act, they hesitate. On the other hand, there are doers who may not always feel confident, may not always have perfect conditions, but they move anyway. They take steps. They learn as they go. They adjust through action. And over time, the difference between both becomes undeniable. One lives in intention, the other lives in results. The Bible makes this principle very clear in James chapter 2, verse 17, which says, faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. That means faith is not proven by what you say, it is proven by what you do. Faith is not complete until it is expressed through action. Belief is the foundation, but action is the structure. Without action, belief remains invisible. Moreover, the real challenge most people face is not lack of faith, it is fear of movement. People know what they should do, but they delay because they are afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, or afraid of not getting it right. But fear does not disappear before action, it disappears through action. Every step you take weakens fear's control over your life. Every movement you make strengthens your confidence, and every attempt builds experience. In addition, acting on your faith requires courage. It requires stepping into uncertainty with trust in God and responsibility in your hands. It is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting the one who does while you take the next step. Many people are waiting for perfect clarity, but clarity often comes after obedience, not before it. You move, then you see. You act, then you understand. The key point here is simple but powerful. Act on what you believe, because belief alone cannot change your life. You can believe you are called, but if you never move, the calling remains dormant. You can believe you are gifted, but if you never practice, the gift remains hidden. You can believe in success, but if you never execute, success remains distant. Furthermore, application is where transformation happens. This is where you stop postponing and start responding. It means taking bold steps even when you feel uncertain. It means choosing obedience over comfort. It means trusting God enough to move even when you cannot see the full picture. Because God often reveals direction in motion, not in stagnation. So the challenge becomes personal. What have you been believing for that you have not acted on? What instruction have you been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable? What step have you delayed because you are waiting to feel ready? Because readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision to move despite uncertainty. Ultimately, faith becomes powerful when it is active. When you pray and then act. When you believe and then move. When you trust God and still take responsibility for your steps. That is where transformation begins. That is where progress is unlocked. That is where destiny starts to manifest in real time. Furthermore, as we bring everything together, it becomes clear that these are not just 5 separate ideas. They are one complete system for transformation. A lifestyle, a way of living that consistently separates the 1% from the 99%. Because real success is not built on one habit, it is built on alignment. When discipline, purpose, time, growth, and faith work together, they produce a life that becomes almost unstoppable in direction and impact. Now understand this clearly. Discipline gives you control over yourself. It ensures you do what is necessary, not what is comfortable. Purpose gives you direction. It tells you where you are going and why you are going there. Time gives you opportunity. It is the space in which everything either grows or is wasted. Growth expands your capacity so you do not remain limited to your current level. And faith with action connects you to divine possibility, ensuring that what you believe becomes what you build. When these 5 habits begin to work together, something powerful happens. Your life stops being random and starts becoming intentional. Your decisions stop being emotional and start being aligned. Your actions stop being scattered and start becoming strategic. You no longer wake up just to survive the day. You wake up to build something meaningful within the day. The Bible reinforces this principle in Joshua chapter 1 verse 8, which says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." Notice the sequence: meditation, observation, action, and then prosperity. Success is not random. It is structured. It is intentional. It is the result of living in alignment with instruction. Moreover, this is where the vision becomes real. Imagine a life where discipline is no longer a struggle, but a lifestyle. You wake up with structure. You live with intention. You no longer negotiate with excuses. Imagine a life where your purpose is clear. You are not confused about direction. You are not scattered by distraction. You are focused, aligned, and moving with certainty. That is the beginning of the 1% life. Imagine also that you begin to respect time deeply. You no longer waste hours on things that add no value. You begin to invest your time into learning, building, improving, and executing. Every day becomes meaningful. Every week becomes productive. Every month becomes measurable progress. Suddenly your life is no longer slipping away. It is being built intentionally. Now picture consistent growth. You are not the same person you were last year. Your thinking is sharper. Your understanding deeper, your decisions wiser, you are evolving, you are expanding, you are becoming someone capable of carrying greater responsibility and greater impact. You are not stuck, you are growing. And then imagine faith in action. You stop hesitating, you stop delaying, you start responding to what God has placed in your heart. You take steps even when you are uncertain. You move even when you don't have all the answers. And as you move, doors begin to open, clarity begins to increase, and opportunities begin to align with your obedience. When all of this comes together, your life becomes a system of alignment. Not perfection, but direction. Not confusion, but clarity. Not inconsistency, but structure. And this is what separates the 1% from the 99%. It is not magic. It is not luck. It is not favoritism. It is alignment with principles that govern results. So the vision is simple but powerful. You become a person who is disciplined, purpose-driven, time-conscious, committed to growth, and active in faith. And when you live this way consistently, your life begins to reflect success, not as a moment, but as a pattern. Purpose, not as a thought, but as a reality. And impact, not as a dream, but as your daily expression. Now this is the question that remains. Will you just hear these habits, or will you become them? Finally, as we come to the end of this message, I need you to understand something very clearly. You cannot stay the same after hearing this. Because when truth is revealed, responsibility is created. Ignorance is no longer an excuse. Delay is no longer harmless. And inaction is no longer neutral. You have heard principles that can reshape your life, but hearing alone is not transformation. Response is. Now the challenge is simple. But it is serious. Start today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions feel perfect. Today. Because every delay is a decision to remain the same. Every postponement is a silent agreement with stagnation, and every excuse is a step away from purpose. You don't need more time, you need decision. You don't need more information, you need execution. The Bible reminds us in Revelation chapter 1 verse 2 to 5 that the testimony of Jesus Christ is the Word of God, and that grace and peace come from the one who is, who was, and who is to come. This is a powerful reminder that God is not only the God of the past or the future, He is present. And in His presence, change is possible right now. Transformation is available right now. A new beginning is available right now. So the question is no longer about what you know, it is about what you will do. Will you remain in the cycle of hearing without changing? Or will you step into the responsibility of action? Because everything you have heard today is not meant to inspire you only. It is meant to confront you, shape you, and move you into a different level of living. And hear this final truth. There is a clear difference between the 99% and the 1%. The difference is not in exposure. The difference is not in opportunity. The difference is not even in potential. The difference is what they do daily. One group lives by habits that produce results. The other lives by habits that maintain limitation. One group acts consistently. The other acts occasionally. And over time, that small difference becomes a lifetime of separation. So as you leave this moment, carry this with you. Your life will not change by what you admire, but by what you apply. Not by what moves you emotionally, but by what you commit to consistently. And the moment your daily habits change, your entire life will begin to change. The difference between the 99% and the 1% is what they do daily.